Hello, fellow human. I'm Socrates, and this is my YouTube channel. Here you will find videos containing ideas that are controversial, unique, and probably don't make much sense in a vacuum. So I'd like to give you some context with which to frame those ideas and thoughts. We have to go back to when I was very young, probably 13 or 14 years old. As a child, I was insatiably curious. I was always asking why and how. And I kind of, after asking why enough times and getting down to the philosophical foundations of it all, I began to realize that there wasn't really much meaning or value behind my own life. And that's a discussion for another video. But I wouldn't really understand the weight and the full meaning of that conclusion until much later in my life. But it did have a significant impact on my thinking at the time. And despite my apathy, I was still driven to really do all the things that were kind of expected of me by like my peers, my family, things like getting into college, getting a good job. But none of those drives were really authentic. I didn't realize this at the time, but they weren't. And they were really doomed to fail for that reason. Once I moved out of the house and was kind of away from my family and peers, those desires kind of receded because there was nothing to keep them going. And they were replaced with, once again, a feeling of overwhelming apathy. Society was still telling me that this was wrong, right? I was still in school. But my brain was telling me that their expectations didn't really make much sense from a rational standpoint, at least not when you extrapolate out far enough. So without a complete sense of self, I kind of was driven to a really depressed state, a very confused state. I dropped out of school, I ran out of money, and just kind of got jobs to survive. I started working in restaurants, and I started smoking cannabis habitually to cope with the fact that I couldn't reconcile my own authentic self with the expectations of society. And it helped for a significantly long time. I was able to live happily enough. I was able to convince myself that there was something wrong with me, and that if I just kept going through the motions, that eventually my authentic self would change to meet society's expectations. I proceeded to get better jobs, I improved my living conditions, I moved towards the lifestyle that was expected of me. I even got engaged to my partner because it was expected. I didn't realize at the time that this was not only detrimental to me, but to my partner as well. What I didn't realize is that my rational mind hadn't ever forgotten or changed from the authentic self that I had developed initially. And all I was doing was ignoring it. And that was causing some serious issues. Eventually, this state of cognitive dissonance just started eating at me, and it had serious effects on me mentally. The relationship crumbled, and I was left in yet another depressed and confused state. It was around this time I began looking closer into philosophy to understand myself and my own thoughts and why I thought the way that I did. It had been almost a decade since I stopped asking why from an introspective point of view. Even though I had taken many philosophy courses through my time in high school and college, I treated them mostly as a memorization exercise as opposed to actually applying them to my own life and my own thoughts and my own mind. And so as I spent more time with myself, I began to realize that what I was doing was obviously not succeeding in reaching the goal that I wanted to reach, which was stability and happiness of a sort, contentment more. And so I made the decision to stop listening to society. and start listening to myself instead. I basically began to act on good faith that what I wanted, that what society wanted, was not necessarily right. So the questions began. Why do I think this way? Why do others think the way that they do? Why do others have different values from me? Where do their values come from? And after months of research and reading, there wasn't really an answer, at least not one that I could discern, and not one that had any substantial meaning. And so the fact was that individuals were driven by whatever mechanism makes us intelligent, whatever operates this brain up here. And we don't actually understand that process at all. We have very vague theories, very vague outlines of how it works, but even whenever you look at it from the neuroscience perspective, we still don't really understand everything that goes on that works together to create the phenomenon of intelligence or consciousness. And so I turn my sights on understanding the foundations of intelligence itself. Now, luckily for me, we are at a point in technological development where it's plausible that a model for general intelligence could be developed. So, with that being said, I developed 3 hypotheses through this process. 1, intelligence is a physical or electrical process that can be both replicated and virtualized. 2, any rational intelligence will eventually become nihilistic because of the nature of intelligence itself. And 3, a large portion of our socioeconomic issues right now are due to the fact that we do not have a complete understanding of our intelligence, and that our society is actually designed counterproductive to our intelligence itself. Now, my goal with this YouTube channel is to help substantiate some of these hypotheses by outlining my framework for general intelligence, as well as the observations and evidence that I can collect to help support the framework and the conclusions that I draw from it. Hopefully, even if I'm wrong, it will inspire a discussion around these ideas and help other people to develop new ways of thinking about these sorts of things. And maybe we can begin to see some real progress towards understanding ourselves.